So welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Mystery School. I am sitting here with David Korchinski. He is a MindScape instructor. He's also a BodyTalk practitioner. I've known him since 2014, and he's an incredible facilitator. Thank you so much for coming on to this, David.
Oh, thank you, Cassandra. Thanks for having me. I hope you're doing well today.
I am, thank you. And you as well.
Thank you.
So I do have some questions for you because you've been in the body talk world, so the energy side of things, for quite a number of years.
Right.
And I would like to know, why did you decide to get into body talk?
So my journey at that stage was having some health challenges, and which I think through the years have found out that's often people are brought to the world of body talk through personal health challenges, which was my initial link to that, having a session or two or three and recognizing the quite amazing potential of body talk and then getting into the system through. So that's the quick intro into that is starting off from a personal standpoint is wanting better health.
Amazing. Really cool. And then shortly after that, you decided you wanted to teach Mindscape as well.
It was quite shortly after that. You are indeed correct. I know that I took the first module for Body Talk, probably in the spring of 2003. And the next module within the Body Talk system for me was indeed Mindscape. And that it was amazing and frustrating and just, I found it so intriguing that very soon after I thought this is really something I could see myself diving deeper into, expanding on it, and eventually indeed instructing. So here we are today.
Yeah. And what was your favorite part about taking Mindscape when you first got introduced to it? What was it that drew you to that class?
I think the bridge to the intuition and the manifestation portions were immediately apparent. It was something that, for me, not being necessarily the strongest of an intuitive at that point, being more of a rational thinker, that kind of approach, it was not just interesting, it was quite fascinating how one can tap into their deeper sense of the world and energy, and just seeing how being more focused and being more directed with your mind's energies can really manifest success in so many different ways, including health, prosperity, and all those kind of things. So it was seeing that, if you want to call it the other side of life, there are probably several sides of life and multiple. So it's not just a coin with two sides for sure, but it's a matter of, if you would boil approaches, the human approach down to thinking or intuition, we can use both, and we can use both in a very strong way, and we can improve on all of it. So that was that's where I really started to dig in.
Amazing. And I know with your background, a lot of it is more corporate too, like more logical, left brain type thinking.
Yes.
I think is important for listeners to know too, that you don't have to see yourself as like this spiritual intuitive person to go into Mindscape. It's applicable for a wide variety of people.
Applicable all across the board, definitely. I find that when I would approach corporate sessions, I facilitated sessions for many years, companies of all sizes, various countries, and humans are human. We're all, there aren't that many types of human beings. I guess the approaches are, we're all infinitely great, and there's that, but yet there's the approach to the business world and the corporate world, which has its own energy to it, and you can still take Mindscape into that realm without having to present yourself as a strictly spiritual approach, and yet it can all be in the background to aid you in your in your success in business and helping others be successful, and just seeing that opening up your broader sense of energy into whatever you undertake can be so powerful and helpful that it still just fascinates and amazes me to this day.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you mentioned that you've been to many other countries as well.
Yes, and getting to teach in person in other countries is such a blessing and an honor. And noticing the consistency of the human animal is really quite something. People are people no matter where you go, and it's interesting. The different cultures still do come through quite strongly, and yet within that, I believe that it's not, people just are not that different at the base, and you can still, there's such a commonality, and that's something that you can really lock into, and if you want to say exploit for everybody's success, I think that's fair to say, because humans want health and prosperity, and they want success, and it doesn't matter where you go, that people want more knowledge and want to say be better at what they're doing and be able to bring their best self to their day to day. So I think there's so many commonalities that way that we can sort of draw upon in our approaches and in our interactions with each other.
Absolutely. I so agree with that. I just want to take a moment to celebrate that fact that you've had so many really interesting experiences. And also, you have gone to many different places to bring this type of a course, which you can already tell that this is a course that's widely wanted for all these different reasons that you're explaining as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Mindscape is universally applicable. And while it's tempting to say that everybody should have Mindscape, I think what I've noticed is that when people are ready for it and they're hungry for that next step in their life, that it's a perfect course for them. I certainly don't want to see people, if you want to say, drag kicking and screaming into a Mindscape seminar, not helpful for any of us. But when somebody's open to possibility, that's the only thing that's necessary, because Mindscape, it really breaks down a lot of paradigms of how most of us were brought up to believe in what level our minds can reach and the power and the level that our minds can achieve in life. And there is quite a big step during the Mindscape seminar where you really have to let go a lot of what you think you know about how the mind works in this world. And when you're ready for that, it's easier. It's, maybe I should say, it's simple but not easy.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite sayings. I say that all the time.
Excellent. And if you're not ready for it, then wait another month, 6 months. But when you're ready to really look at that aspect of the world, the universe, then it's time for Mindscape.
And I can so agree, because I took Mindscape 10 years ago, just about now.
Nice.
And that was one of the biggest things that I found, is that I had to let go of how I thought the world even functioned on some level.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's
Right.
truly a mind trip in such a positive way.
And you have to get your maximum value, you really have to bring a sense of playfulness to your attendance with the material, with your application of the material. The more you can free your expectations and your limits, the more you can open yourself up to possibility,
Right.
the stronger it is for you, and the more enjoyable as well. And when you're enjoying yourself and your life and your interaction with the world and others and things and stuff, then life can flow a lot easier.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a really good lesson for people to actually remember too, is bringing that sense of play in anything that they do, especially these kinds of courses, because it just allows you to be more present.
Oh, I like that. The present moment. Mindscape is so present moment. It's that's another one of the great benefits, is to use it properly and well, and to get, again, the maximum out of it. We need to be right there with it right now. And while that might sound daunting to newcomers, I assure you that once it becomes like a soundtrack to your life, and it can just play in the background, but as long as it's playing, you're benefiting from it. And yet it really enables you to experience the present moment in such a brilliant and bright and clear way. Definitely. I love that thought of the present moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm curious, what kind of successes have you had in the class that people have utilized MindScape for, or they kind of blew themselves away with what they were able to achieve?
I think that student feedback is so much of what we take away as facilitators, whether it be a Mindscape or the corporate work that I did, is that when we hear about one or two things for each participant that they say, now I can see something that I can do differently on a day-to-day basis that will improve my life, it's massive. So people saying that now I trust my intuition, for example, that's a huge one for Mindscape. It's that I can not just set a goal, but I can achieve it, and I'll achieve it easier and more quickly. So it's those kind of things that really it really drives a big part of the motivation, and it's a satisfying aspect of the realm of facilitating.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. Having that feedback is really important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm curious too, because I know eventually, like once you learn Mindscape and you start to use it more day to day, what are some things that you utilize Mindscape for?
Well, it can be as simple as arriving to your destination when you're driving somewhere in a timely and safe way. And it can be as big as reaching your next career goal, or getting through a big health challenge. And when we look at both the big and the small aspects of it, I think we want to find a balance, because eventually you can look at the really big issues in your life via the prism of Mindscape for a huge support and huge benefit. And yet you want to balance it out with some of those little things in life, which is just have a nice experience with your, if you wake up and you have affirmations in the first place, I think it takes it deeper, and it enables you to lock those in a stronger way and be more true to your priorities in life. Really, I think Mindscape is a perfect way to prioritize, because when you spend time with it, it can quickly become apparent what you're drawn to in your own world with your own goals, because most of us have multiple goals in this life, in this world, whether it's health, family, friends, business success, artistic success, and enjoyment of life, all the above. Yet we can't tackle it all at once. So I think we have to recognize our priority deep down, and it's different for everybody. And once we can sort those out, you can start knocking over those bowling pins one at a time, and yet they're the ones that matter to you most, and that will resonate to the rest of your life. And it really can, you lift your own boat up that way, and you get a greater perspective of your potential and your abilities.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So a lot of what I'm hearing with you facilitating this class is that some of the areas that you really like to focus is guiding others into actually meet more of their potential, more of their intuition, but their mind's capability as well.
It's very important to me to find out what has brought someone to study Mindscape and to learn it. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what I do with my Mindscape, and everyone's Mindscape is unique to that individual, which is always really cool.
Yeah.
And yet I want to hear from students what matters to them, help them find that, help them bring Mindscape into their life, but recognize ultimately each of us brings Mindscape into our own life, and that's the only way it is. And so there's always a sense of having to just dive into that pool and encouraging people to do so. You kind of have to leave the nest on your own, and you have to take that leap of faith and that leap of trusting your skills with it. But it's watching that process, it's listening to people, it's getting them past a few of the barriers that I completely relate to, because everyone starts with their first Mindscape class, and you don't become an instructor just because you studied for a couple of days on a weekend many years ago, or even use it well because of that.
Right.
It's still, you want to nurture that joy of using it. You want to nurture that person's knowledge base, that they can bring those skills together on their own, because it is a personal journey. And we love sharing stories during the seminar. We always encourage study groups, post seminar. They're all helpful completely. And yet, when the meeting's over, and everyone goes back to their day-to-day life, we're all on our own at that stage, and we have to be able to dive back in happily, easily, and all the rest. So I think it's leading people to a sense of, I can get there, I can do this, and I'm fine with it. And once in a while, if I share stories with fellow Mindscapers, that's great and it boosts me. But ultimately, when it's just me and four walls around me, I can still use this to my benefit and benefit of those around me.
Absolutely. Amazing. And I think one of the favorite things about the classes that I've done with you over the last year, I think year and a half, it's been really interesting because you bring a lot of knowledge to the table as well, a lot of experience. But other than that, the one thing that I love about you is how you connect individually and how you choose your words as well. You're very intentional. And I think that's also important to know with each class, what the facilitator, what their personality is. And I love how you connect with each student individually and as a whole, and bring that sense of safety and that sense of care to the class.
Well, those are very kind words, and I appreciate it so much. And I'll speak to that. And yet at first it makes me think of what your approach is when you not just facilitate, but even when you coordinate, you just throw yourself at your clients in such a positive and supportive way that it's very inspiring. And I see that the people that you bring into your world are so keen, and they're so just engaged, and they're willing to engage and explore all these realms of the universe that are there for all of us. And I'd like to think that I noticed the things that you mentioned about my approach, and well, to start with, didn't come easily. I'll assure you about that. That's years and years of facilitating, and sometimes getting knocked down, but always picking yourself back up and saying, what can I do a little bit better next time, or a lot better?
Yeah.
And what worked well, what didn't, how can I help these people in an even better way, and help them find the material and find themselves in the material. And yes, I certainly appreciate your kind words. And it's always a bit of a, there's some effort, and there's some needing to stay in that present moment. It's not always easy. I spoke of it earlier, and yet that can be something that can maybe not be so easily held on a class by class basis. But the more you can be there, it's a reminder that if I'm present with my material and my students at the time, I'm at my best self. Not always easy.
Yeah.
And yet when we get there, I think it's more satisfying for everybody, because you can respond to what's in front of you rather than relying on just your books and your written material and all the rest. And you can respond to and really get to the issues quicker that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you as well for your kind words about how you view me too. I really appreciate that.
Mhm.
And I also love the realness too about you talking about how you've had to do a lot of self-reflection. And I think you're such a good model for others, not just people taking your class, but in general, to be self-reflective and self-responsible. And that's really important with anything that you do, because truly you can take 1,000 classes, but unless you have that self-responsibility and that self-reflection and putting forward that, I don't want to say discipline, that's not the right word, but I guess motivation in some way, right, to actually utilize what you're learning.
I like that thought. It's a sense of we have to we have to dive into the world somewhere. We have to say, I'm keen to learn. I know there's a big world out there, a big universe, and I want to be a part of it in a bigger ways. And we show up to courses and seminars and into the world and
Mhm.
with that keenness, which is great. But then you also have to dive back into the world somewhere and say, okay, day to day, what am I doing with this material, this stuff? How can I utilize my talents in the best way to benefit my family, myself, my network, those kind of things. And discipline is part of it though too. It's it's to say, okay, um, maybe life's feeling a bit routine right now, but I have to. Sometimes it's a slog, no matter what you're doing, no matter how much you love your job and your role and all that. There's
Mhm.
always a bit of a grind to whatever we choose to take on in this world, and that's just the wheel of life, and we're all caught up in it, and there's no doubt about that. But I think it's sometimes we just need to get that broader perspective on things and to you know take a different approach even for ourselves and be willing to be flexible in our approach too.
Yeah, I so agree. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and with Mindscape too, like I know me and you have chatted about this, but how else would you explain it other than the intuition? Because I know I've kind of pigeonholed myself at times with explaining Mindscape and equating it to solely intuition, but that's only a small part of it.
Well, it's a big small part of it, and it's a
Yeah.
big part of it. So we don't I don't would never downplay the intuitive aspect of Mindscape because it certainly comes from that realm. Goal setting, goal achieving. It's really about manifestation in so many ways. It's to improve whatever it is you do. I'm back to the big generalization there because there's, I know it really can improve whatever you do in this world and whatever matters to you, that you can take those bigger steps more quickly to get where you want to be. And when you can, one thing we have in our marketing material, I'm actually going to read from that. When it comes to optimal health, when your mind is clear and focused on positive outcomes, the body will follow. Now,
Mm,
if you're listening to the podcast and you'd write that down, it seems simple. We're back to simple, but not easy. Because when
absolutely.
you can be clear on what your achievements are and you want them to be, but they have to be present moment. You have to be with that. So bringing things into a present moment, massive. Deeper intuition, that's massive. Goal achieving, well, again, that's people think about, well, make your lists and and that's important. That's a huge part of it. But how do you bridge those gaps between writing down your goals and then manifesting them into your life? I think
Mm,
that was such an unknown for so many years, and Mindscape is one of the strongest options that you have for that because it answers so many of those in between questions, from starting with your goals to noticing that, well, you've achieved your goal. So we have to bridge that gap somehow, and I believe Mindscape is probably the most powerful way you can do that.
absolutely. I so agree. It's been such an interesting journey with this class in general and just utilizing it day to day. And something that actually came to my mind recently with it, and I don't know if you would agree, I know we talk a lot about the mental capacity, But do you think it also bridges the disconnect that some people might have between the head and the heart, like the logic and the emotional side?
Right. It really does. It's it is again, it's I'm not going to say Mindscape's the only way to achieve whatever we've talked about. That would be a lot disingenuous, really. And yet it's such a strong way. And with so many practitioners of Mindscape in the world, it's got a strong matrix that does that. But the head and the heart issue, what I what I also know about that is, so the short answer is yes, it's the bridge for those two aspects of self, and yet it expands and increases and improves both, because when you bring a strong rational mind to the class, we can work with that. That was my stronger beginning to Mindscape journey, is bringing that more rational side to it. And there are so many ways you utilize that rational side to actually take advantage of your intuitive side and even the heart side. I'm not saying intuitive is only heart, because I think intuition is bigger than just the heart. It's the gut, it's even the brain, it's all that. But I hear you in terms of that duality that many of us operate within, the head and the heart. You want to you want to improve your grasp of yourself in both senses, and then that allows you to take. I guess I'm caught up in my own head and heart issue right now. No, it's all fine. So Mindscape really, it bridges that. It lets you be more aware of your sense of both within yourself, and it also allows you to be stronger in your approach from those, and to really get your messages from both. You're right there. There can be a conflict between our head and our hearts individually and collectively, that's for sure. But on an individual basis, we can start to be our own counsel when it comes to that. What's important to me. Sometimes you go after the head, the ideas you have in your head compared to the ones you have in your heart. Other times, vice versa. And then you can also, that sense of priority, what matters to you right now. Sometimes the rational side is the way to go. I never want to downplay either side between rational and intuitive. You want to just say, well, which one's better? The only answer I have to that is yes, and it's both, and it's beyond that as well. I think that when we're strong in the heart, I think sometimes that can leave people a bit vulnerable to not being able to bring things into the more concrete realm, that their world of feelings and ideas is a bit overwhelming. And so that can have its own mini paralysis to it. So I think we can help people work with Mindscape to then implement things into this world and bring them out of the realm of just feelings and an emotion, and then still turn that into positive results in this world. So that's where I'm at with that in this moment.
Yeah, I love that, because you brought really good examples for either end as well, like being the rational side and bringing in more of that emotional, intuitive, felt sense. But then the opposite too, of where you can be deep in that felt sense, but then also need some structure to allow your intuition to actually fly even further.
You do. And if we can learn to tether our intuition again to this world, and if you want to knock on your desk or feel your feet on the floor, or something to say that yes, we still live in this world, and people with strong intuition still benefit from Mindscape in a huge way, because there's that tether now and that structure. People with a strong structure, such as my approach was prior to utilizing Mindscape in a bigger way, that's fine too if you're more structured, because of all the little things we do to build Mindscape during the seminar and beyond. You then, within that structure, allow your intuition to absolutely just go wherever it needs to go, and to watch it and to play with it and to benefit from it. So we want to be stronger in both, and it doesn't matter if one's stronger than the other. We're still going to be great with Mindscape. We're still going to benefit. Either one is not the answer, and it's kind of an all of the above thing. But when you're ready for that journey and to just kind of dive in there and trust yourself and trust the material, then amazing things will come your way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's still one of my favorite things about your approach is that it's more so about harmony of everything versus one being better than the other. It's really creating that connection between all parts of you and how you also connect with the world.
Definitely. And flexibility, I think, is huge in that equation, because some days you're just not, even your favorite Mindscape approach might not be working on a particular day. So you might have to take a few seconds and ground yourself in your thoughts and in your abilities and say, well, what else is there for me today? And I want to be open to success today. And yet it's going to have to be a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to play with the ideas and play with your skills and abilities and being open to possibility, I think is so important. And just being a mindscaper is a quick way to remind yourself of that well, I took that leap of faith and that I shattered a few paradigms in that seminar. And I'll admit, once in a while you can take that for granted and you catch yourself and you say, okay, let's just be thankful and grateful that we've worked through some of these big paradigms and we've expanded them. And let's just, let's either get back to work or get back to enjoying this and all of the above, because the more you play with concepts and are willing to be flexible and playful with it, I think, success and prosperity and health and all those things, they'll come a little bit easier more of the time.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience today. I appreciate everything that you brought forward, not just about this class, but there's been so many really good, like gold nuggets in here for people just in general to listen to and to remind themselves of. So thank you so much for joining me today and talking about this.
And thank you so much for having me. It was absolutely an honor and pleasure to be with you today, Cassandra, and to be chatting about this material. And I know we'll be carrying this forward in a big way.
Absolutely. Any lingering thoughts that you have for any of the listeners who are ready to take that leap of faith?
When you're ready, then it's going to be fascinating for you. It's going to be enjoyable. It's going to be easier. You're going to just find so much flexibility of self and approach, and you'll have a great time with Mindscape, and you'll be able to just benefit in so many ways that I hope you'll join us soon, and I look forward to having you in the seminar.
Amazing. Thank you so much, David.
Thanks, Cassandra.